Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to both of you. According to the National Conference of State Legislatures, 25 states and the District of Columbia allow for comprehensive public medical marijuana programs. My state of Minnesota is one of them. I know that each of these medical marijuana programs, which are not classified as a comprehensive approach to the issue of medical marijuana differently. For instance, the medical marijuana law that Minnesota passed in 2014 limited the program up to patients with one of 9 medical conditions such as cancer, and also limited delivery methods to exclude smoking. This year, the state made amendments to that law, including adding intractable pain as a qualifying condition effective next month. And just, I think that's one example. Given the broad diversity of medical marijuana laws throughout the country, what lessons have we learned, or have you learned, by observing and comparing the results in each of these states? Do you see one that's a model that we should be looking at? Dr. Weiss, you probably don't want to pick out one state.
So I don't think we have all of the answers yet. I think that we need to, I know this is what the scientists always say, but I think we do need to have more research. I think that we're very concerned about the states that have very liberal policies about medical marijuana, as particularly California, for example, is one that we do hear that the average medical marijuana user is about 35 with low back pain, and that may be a very different situation from what you have in Minnesota and from what some of the other states have. But at this point, I think we're still talking about products that are not being regulated, and that it's unclear what the appropriate dosage would be for any of these different conditions. So we have grave concerns about patients using medical marijuana without additional research and additional guidance.
So along
on how
that
to use
line,
them.
and if you want to add something, Mr. Throckmorton, maybe I'll get that, but it just goes into my next question, and that's about research. And what do you think the most effective steps we could take to expand medical research?
So apart from the always need for additional funding, we also, there are ways to streamline the research process so that investigators would feel that it was less burdensome and that it was less of a threatening process, and would encourage them to go into research. One of the things that NIH did this past year was hold a summit, and part of the reasons for having this summit was to show that NIH as a whole is supportive of research, and is supportive of research not only into the harmful effects of marijuana, but also into the therapeutic effects.
And so how do our research laws compare to other countries? Well, what they're doing, are there other countries that are doing more with research on medical marijuana, and can we use some of that research?
I think some of these other countries are also struggling with it. These are laws that are changing. I recently read an article by somebody in Israel who's actually the person who first isolated THC from the marijuana plant back in the 1960s, and he's talked about the fact that in Israel the laws have gotten easier for doing research, and yet still there are not sufficient clinical trials to be able to make strong recommendations as to which products can be used for what illnesses. So I think we still have a ways to go, but I certainly think that making it possible for, having additional growers, which was already discussed and which is something that we're looking into with our colleagues from other agencies, is something that would be helpful, as well as ways of helping people get through the Schedule 1 licensing process in a way that can expedite things.
And Dr. Throckmorton, there are currently 2 FDA-approved drugs that contain cannabinoid chemicals in pill form. Is that right?
There are 3. We approved a third a few weeks ago.
Okay. And I know one of them treats nausea caused by chemotherapy, and another one is regarding appetite loss with patients with AIDS. And what was the process that the FDA would have gone through to approve those 3 drugs?
Well, so those 3 drugs would have had the same process used that we would apply to drug development from any other source, any other plant, for instance. We've developed drugs from plants in the past, and we applied that same process. What we're doing now is making sure that process is as efficient as it possibly can be for things like marijuana. So I have a botanicals team. I have one individual that helps identify all of the new investigational uses of marijuana and connects those investigators up with the right divisions and the right manufacturing consultants and things, so they're able to get the work done as quickly as possible. I would say one other piece that's given me some hope, I would say, has been the work that we've had going on with the states. So some of the states that have passed medical marijuana laws, Louisiana, for instance, and states that have passed laws regarding recreational marijuana use, like Colorado, have come to us because they also want to make sure that they're encouraging and supporting research to the extent they can. And we've been able to tie them with our development team to make sure that that research is as robust and as efficient as possible.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, do you see this as expanding research because of the work of the states, or do you think there's things that you could be doing differently with the FDA to expand the research?
If there are things that we could be doing at the FDA, I'd like to know about them because we would try to do them. No, that's why I was just asking if I genuinely would be interested, because we have looked very carefully to try to make sure we're not in the way, that we're in fact supporting the efficient research to the extent we can. I am cautiously encouraged by the work that the states are doing. We had an opportunity in Louisiana, we had an opportunity to talk to one of their research institutes as a follow-up to the things that they had done, work with that institute, put them in touch with the right people to hopefully get the research that really needs done.
All right. Thank you very much.